Good morning, I'm Angela Lagunzad Castro. It is Tuesday, the 6th of January, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Now first on the agenda, reaction is pouring in after President Bongbong Marcos signed the 6.7 trillion peso 2026 national budget into law, with Senate leaders calling in the cleanest budget ever, while others say the real test now lies in how it will be implemented. Here's the report.
President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. has signed the 6.7 trillion peso 2026 national budget into law. However, not all items submitted by the Bicameral Conference Committee were approved. The president vetoed items under the unprogrammed appropriations amounting to 92.5 billion pesos. Unprogrammed appropriations refer to funds or programs that can only be used if government revenues exceed targets or if there are additional foreign loans or grants. Lawmakers and critics had earlier warned that these funds could be vulnerable to corruption.
We acknowledge the support of Congress in limiting the unprogrammed appropriations to essential needs. However, I push further and reduce it to the absolute bare minimum. This shall be at the level lowest since 2019. Let me be clear. The unprogrammed appropriations are not blank checks. We will not allow the unprogrammed appropriations to be misused or treated as a backdoor for discretionary spending.
According to the Department of Budget and Management, only 3 items remain under the unprogrammed appropriations. The DBM assured that the past abuses involving unprogrammed funds will not be repeated. Senate President Tito Sotto described the 2026 national budget as the cleanest budget ever. He said President Marcos also emphasized provisions meant to prevent patronage politics, particularly the anti-Apple clauses covering aid programs. Senate President Pro Tempore Ping Lacson also said he is happy and satisfied with the 2026 national budget. For Senator Erwin Tulfo, the 2026 budget is one that can help restore public trust in government. Political analyst Professor Dennis Coronacion of the University of Santo Tomas believes President Marcos' low trust ratings may have influenced his decision to veto parts of the unprogrammed appropriations.
Siguro naging recently baka naging concern na rin ng Pangulo yung kanyang mababang ratings. Kaya siguro naisip niya na rin yan since wala pa naman siyang hindi niya ma-address yung panawagan, yung demand ng mga tao na gawing accountable yung mga big fish na inaasahan pa nung yung pinangako niyang December 15 na petsa. So since hindi niya nagawa yun, so he's probably thinking of another way to address yung issue ng corruption.
The Department of Justice has begun the preliminary investigation into separate complaints filed against Senator Joel Villanueva and former Senator Bong Revilla. These are in connection with their alleged involvement in ghost flood control projects in Bulacan. Villanueva appeared before the DOJ to submit his counter-affidavit and presented 3 witnesses to deny the accusations. His camp maintains there is no proof he received money from any flood control or government projects. Meanwhile, Revilla, through his lawyer, dismissed the complaint as hearsay, saying it is based on unreliable and unbelievable sources. She argued that the accusations lack credible evidence and are being used to harass the former senator.
No, nandito tayo para ipakita yung commitment natin sa due process, sa legal process. Kaya tayo nandito despite the fact na yung paniniwala natin remains the same, na ridiculous talaga yung complaint. Pero siyempre, nire-respeto natin yung legal process. Alam niyo yung nangyayari tungkol sa flood control. Kinamumuhian natin for so many years. Yung away namin ni Zaldico, tapos doon sa complaint, 1% daw binibigay ni Zaldico sa akin. So, that's ridiculous.
Sa madaling sabi, ang mga aligasyon laban kay former Senator Ramon Bong Revilla ay walang batayan. Yung mga ganitong complaint na fina-file na walang batayan, para bang final lang, para lang mangharas o mangabala ng isang individual. So, sa totoo lang, yung mga ganitong complaint, ayon sa batas at sa rules ng evidence, hindi ito dapat paniwalaan. Hindi ito dapat pakinggan dahil ito ay walang bigat at walang halaga.
Contractor Sara Descaya and 8 other accused appeared via video conference before Branch 27 of the Lapu-Lapu City Regional Trial Court for the first hearing. During the hearing, the defense questioned the court's jurisdiction. They said the case should instead be filed and tried in Davao Occidental, where the alleged crime was committed. Because of this, the accused filed a motion to quash, seeking the dismissal of both the case and the warrants of arrest issued by the Lapu-Lapu RTC. The case stems from alleged charges involving a 96.5 million peso ghost flood control project.
The case should be filed in a court where the crime was committed. You cannot just file it in any court. Change of venue does not apply because, number one, there was no motion. There should be a proper motion and the party should be heard.
Don't go away. We will be back with more stories after the break. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on WA News. Starting this week, the Land Transportation Office, or LTO, will further tighten the ban on e-trikes and e-bikes on major roads across Metro Manila. LTO Chief Marcos Lacanilao said the vehicles will also be prohibited along Commonwealth Avenue and Quezon Avenue in Quezon City, as well as Marcos Highway and Sumulong Highway in Rizal and Marikina. The ban was earlier implemented along EDSA C5 Road, Rojas Boulevard, and Quirino Avenue last week. The LTO said the stricter measures are being enforced to ensure road safety. Joining us now is Land Transportation Office Chief Attorney Marcos Lacanilao. Good morning and welcome to Morning Matters.
Good morning, Angela.
Yes, Attorney. So ano po ba yung naisip natin? What prompted the LTO to expand the ban on e-trikes and e-bikes to more major roads? Meron po ba tayong mga nakitang mataas na aksidente sa mga lugar na ito?
Apo, unang-una po, Happy New Year sa lahat. Ma'am, hindi po ako attorney. Engineer
sorry.
po ako.
Engineer, okay,
ngayon,
okay.
Actually, ano po ito, respond namin ito during the budget hearing kay Senator Raffy Tulfo regarding sa concerns with the e-bike. Sa totoo lang, medyo mataas po yung mga road crashes concerning to e-trikes. So, kaya nung supposed to be December, i-implement po ito. Kaya lang nagbigay po kami ng 30 days na information drive. So, nung nag-start po kami nung January 2, yung aming implementation. So, nag-implement po kami sa 4 major highways, which is yung EDSA, Pasay to Monumento, C5 Road, Rojas Boulevard, and Quirino to Magallanes, South Luzon Expressway. Sa may dulo po ng South Luzon Expressway.
Right. So, upon this implementation, Engineer, how many were caught violating this ban? At saan pong mga areas yung pinakamaraming nakita po natin may violation?
Okay. Yung pong unang araw po, naka 114 po kami yung total na nahuli. Then, yung sumunod po na araw, ay 78. And then, nung Sunday, 45. Kahapon, inaantay ko lang po yung data today na bibigay po nila kung ilan po yung nahuli. Pero ang medyo may concern ako, yun pong sa may Quirino Avenue, sa may South Luzon Expressway. Yung Magallanes area po yan, 30 ho yung nahuli on the first day. Then, nung second day, ganun pa din, 30 yung nahuli. Marami sa kanila po yung natikitan, Miss Angela.
Okay. So, tapos na tayo dun sa grace period na sisitahin lang muna and then eventually papalayaan. Pero ngayon natikitan na sila. Most of the numbers that you mentioned kanina ay natikitan na po.
Actually, ma'am, ganito. Nung since January 2, sinabi ko nga po dun sa mga enforcement natin, pwede natin silang sabihan, i-guide sa mga inner roads, pwede silang tumakbo doon. Kaya lang, apparently, may mga matitigas ang ulo na bumalik pa rin, kaya napilitan po silang tikitan sila. Kaya po nung na-apprehension sila, natikitan ho sila. Actually, ito, bigyan ko kayo ng data. Yun hong natikitan, 30, almost 20 yung natikitan dito. So yun, yung 10, sunod naman po sila, binigyan namin ng pagkakataon. Sa amin naman, hanggat maaari, ma'am, dahil nga yung first 3 days, ayoko sana silang matikitan or mahuli. Pero kaya lang, meron pa rin tayong mga kababayan na medyo matitigas ang ulo. Ini-insist na pinakamalapit yon. Kaya ang nangyayari, natitikitan na talaga sila.
All right. So, of course, with this implementation, engineer, many have voiced out concerns on the livelihood, no, of people who use e-trikes and e-bikes, no, as their mode of transportation. One of which po naman nakita po natin nagrereklamo. Ang sinasabi po nila, the reason why they use it because there's no other public transportation in the area. And of course, yung kaninang nabanggit ko rin po, livelihood nila. So, meron po ba tayong coordination with the Department of Transportation as well to make sure na yung areas that binabanggit po nila ay magkaroon po ng other mode of transportation para hindi na po nila gamitin yung kanilang mga e-trikes or e-bikes on the major roads na bawal sila?
Actually, ma'am, yung mga area po na nabanggit namin na pinagbabawalan sila, marami pong mga mode of transportation doon. Nasa sentro po ng Metro Manila yan. Pangalawa, marami pong mga inner roads na pwede po silang daanan. Kaya limited pa lang yung mga pinagbawalan namin sila na major roads. Marami pong dadaanan doon. Yun na lang, ang nagiging dahilan kasi nila, yun daw yung pinakamabilis na dumaan sila. Kaya lang, may ano po tayo, may batas po tayo na kailangan sundin. Pangalawa, ang priority po dito, road safety. Yun naman po yung pinaka-importante dito.
Alright, so para lang po malinaw sa ating mga kapatid that are watching right now, ano po ba yung mga penalties no, nakakaharapin po ng mga magva-violate po nitong ban na ito?
Unang-una ma'am, yung obstruction of traffic, may katumbas po yan na 1,000 pesos.
Okay.
And kung naka 2 wheels po yung e-trikes at wala siyang helmet, pwede siyang mahuli again ng 1,000, ma-penalize ng 1,500 for that.
Okay, so meron din po kasi ako nakikita at nababasa pong report na okay, mahigpit po kayo ngayon sa mga e-trikes and e-bikes pero yung mga ibang mga naka-motorcycle then on major roads, karamihan or may mga nakikita rin po silang mga angkas nila na hindi naka-helmet. So, how do we compensate that na makita po ng ating mga kababayan that we are treating this law fairly, no? Equally?
Ma'am, kami naman sa LTO, lahat po hinuhuli namin, especially yung mga walang helmet na nakamotorsiklo, hinuhuli po namin yan. Mahigpit po kami diyan. Yun nga lang, kung akong tatanungin niyo, as much as possible, ayoko naman dumating sa punto na hulihin or i-impound sila. Pero minsan may mga matitigas po ang ulo. Kung matatandaan nyo, nagkaroon ng viral photo nung Christmas na yung e-trike nag-counterflow sa gitna ng EDSA. So talagang delikado, napakadelikado ng ginagawa nila. Kasi unang-una, karamihan sa kanila wala silang driver's license, hindi nila naiintindihan yung mga traffic rules and regulations, kaya kung saan-saan sila pumapasok na nagiging sanhi po ng aksidente.
So ano naman po yung ating advice na mabibigay sa e-trike and e-bike to avoid nga po itong mga violations ito? Because a lot of them are still asking for clearer guidelines, no? Nakikita ko po at nababasa ko po sa mga balita. Yun po ang kanilang hinihingi mula sa LTO.
Ang guidelines lang naman mga unang-una, bawal po talaga sila sa mga highway. Matagal na po itong batas na to na hindi lang masyado na pagtuunan ng pansin. Pero kami po sa LTO, kailangan na po talaga nating ipatupad ito. So, yung guidelines, bawal po sila sa major highway, doon na lang po sila sa secondary road. Pero sa DOTR naman po, dahil yung aming mother agency, puspusan sila, nagbabalangkas or nagfo-form ang DOTR ng Joint Memorandum Circular para mairehistro itong mga sasakyan na ito, mga e-trikes at e-bikes. Pero hindi ho ibig sabihin pag sila ay mairehistro, pwede na uli sila sa highway. Hindi po. Ano lang po yan, para magkaroon sila ng pagkakakilanlan, identification, maiwasan na magamit sa krimen, in case ma-involve sa aksidente, ma-penalize sila. Pero yun nga, pwede silang dumaan sa mga inner roads. Mas safe naman po sila dumaan doon.
Engineer, yung memorandum circular that you just mentioned a while ago, kailan po natin to makikita out in the public?
Actually, ano po ito tulong-tulong po ang DOTR, DPWH, DILG, LTO, LTFRB para po mailabas to sa lalong madaling panahon. Kaya lang sa amin sa LTO, kailangan na naming gumalaw, kaya nag-start na kami nung January 2 nung sa paghuhuli or pag-flag down ng mga e-trikes and e-bikes dito sa mga highway na ito.
At isa pa rin po sa mga nirereklamo, of course, I'm just voicing out po yung mga nababasa natin ng mga reports regarding this, yung hirap daw po na makakuha ng mga lisensya sa LTO. So kung idadagdag pa daw po ito, isa sa mga nakita ko pong report, sinabi, di na lang, gagarahe ko na lang yung e-trike ko kasi kesa kumuha pa ako ng lisensya.
Ma'am, napaka-importante ng lisensya. Ngayon,
Yes.
madali na pong kumuha ng mga driver's license from student permit to non-professional to professional. Importante yan kasi once na na-involve sila sa mga aksidente, meron silang driver's license na magagamit nila yung legality ng pagtakbo nila sa kalye. Isa ho yan sa mga binabalangkas or fino-form ng DOTR. Pero ako personally, hindi lang dahil sa e-bike user sila, maganda kung ang mamamayan may mga driver's license kasi very important sa atin yung mobility na nakakapag-drive tayo.
And of course, isa din po sa yung mga critics would say na titignan nyo sila because this is also another form or another avenue for corruption. Kunin ng lisensya, pahingan ng insurance, etc. What do you have to say to that, Engineer?
Ma'am, unang-una, may batas tayo We need to follow the law. Kaya merong mga area na dapat talaga na pagbawalan sila. Ngayon, yun sa paghuhuli, kaya nga sinabi ko yun sa enforcement natin, on the first 3 days, sabi ko, igabayan ninyo or i-guide ninyo sila pumunta sa inner road. Hanggat maaari, hindi ko prioritize na manghuli o mag-impound ng e-trikes mas prioritize kong maghuli ng mga mas malalaking accomplishments. Like nung nakita nyo, yung first 2 months ko dito, puro mga luxury vehicles ang nahuli ko. Ang sa akin lang, kailangan po talaga natin kasi walang katumbas ang buhay ng tao. Yung road safety ang importante. So may mga pinagbabawal po talaga ng mga kalye. Kung hindi po natin i-implemento, paikot-ikot na lang po tayo. Ano mangyayari sa atin? Left and right, dumadaan sila na may concern talaga. Kasi talagang marami silang, kung nakita nyo yung mga viral video, yung e-trike, tinumbok yung pedestrian, 3 tao tumalsik. So, may concern. Oh, yes, opo.
Yun nga po at Engineer, probably you could give us a data or number kung ilan po yung mga road accidents prior to this implementation of this ban.
Yes, opo. We will comply, ma'am. We will send you the data also.
Ngayon po, wala po kayong rough estimate so that the viewers could have an idea.
Wala po akong hawak ngayon pero mamaya po makukuha ko po yung data niyan.
Alright, with that, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. Engineer Marcos Nacanilao ng LTO. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat.
Phase 2 of the EDSA rehabilitation is now underway with the Department of Public Works and Highways conducting nightly road works to minimize disruption to motorists and commuters. The phase will cover the stretch from EDSA Orense to Quezon City, with construction scheduled from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. From Monday to Friday, asphalt overlay works will be conducted, while lane reblocking and additional overlay will be done on weekends. Phase 2 is expected to run until May 31. On January 5, Phase 1 of the EDSA rehabilitation was completed, covering reblocking and asphalt overlay of both northbound and southbound lanes from Ross Boulevard to EDSA Orense.
Solid na solid ang paggagawa, no? Unlike sa mga asfalto dati na parang nababakbak agad ang mga bato-bato maririnig mo sa fender mo, sa gulong mo na dumidikit.
The arraignment of retired Air Force Major General Romeo Poquis has been set for January 14. That follows his arrest at the NAIA Terminal 3 this morning over inciting to sedition charges. The retired general was allegedly taken without his lawyer's knowledge, but the police insisted that the arrest followed standard operating procedures. The CIDG brought Poki straight to Camp Crame, then to the Quezon City Regional Trial Court Branch 77, which issued the arrest warrant against him. Pokis is being charged for inciting to sedition over his participation in an anti-corruption protest at the People Power Monument back in November.
Limang buwan na. Dapat ang kinakasuhan, kinukulong, yung mga nagnanakaw ng bilyon-bilyon, mga trilyon-trilyon. Hindi itong tulad ko. Tayo lamang ay nagpapahayag ng ating damdamin. Yung pot at galit yun sa matinding korupsyon na ito na nangyari sa ating bayan.
Now stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back after a short break. Good morning, I'm Angela Lagunzad Castro, and here on Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and give you the context behind the headlines. As we know, President Bongbong Marcos has vetoed less than half of the unprogrammed appropriations in the 2026 national budget. The president struck out more than 92.5 billion pesos worth of items, saying unprogrammed funds have been reduced to the bare minimum. It's now at just over 150 billion pesos, the lowest level since 2019. Marcos stressed, though, that unprogrammed appropriations are not blank checks and vowed they will not be used as a backdoor for the discretionary spending. Only 3 items remain under unprogrammed appropriations, including support for foreign-assisted projects, military modernization, and risk management programs. Joining us now is Kabataan Party List Representative Rene Co, one of the lawmakers closely watching how the 2026 national budget will be implemented. Good morning, Kong, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting us. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year as well. Now, we have a budget. Of course, the President Marcos vetoed some of the unprogrammed appropriations. Do you agree with the President decisions to veto portions of the unprogrammed appropriations? Or do you feel na dapat yung buong unprogrammed appropriations ng kanyang na-veto?
Dapat po yung buong unprogrammed appropriations ang vinito. Ang interpretation actually natin, the much-touted veto of 92.5 billion pesos in unprogrammed appropriations is nothing but pampalubag loob. Token gesture po siya to distract from the billions in pork barrel funds that remain untouched in the signed budget. Well, una po, yung pagkakaroon ng unprogrammed appropriations or standby appropriations, that is not a process found in the Constitution. Kung meron pong excess income na na-realize ang government, ang nakalagay po na process doon ay mag-submit ng supplemental budget yung DBM Malacanang to the Congress. At ito ay aaprobahan for use in the later part of the year. Hindi po itong martial law relic of having purposes na nakalagay and then later on pwedeng planuhin na lang kung paano yon. And yun po yung unang pinaka-main reason natin kung bakit dapat buong unprogrammed appropriations ang vinito or in the first place non-existent, kasi may process na dapat nag-undergo yan. And number 2, nandyan pa rin standing ang analysis natin how our budget is actually not responsive to the needs of the Filipino people because ang main priority niya is it upholds the pork barrel system. Hindi naman na-veto ang allocables. Hindi na-veto ang local government support fund na mas nilakihan yung essentially pork na pwedeng mag-dip into ang Malacanang, ang government, and ipapasa sa local government na kailangan, so to speak, etc. So, andyan pa po silang lahat. And so, therefore, our system is still vulnerable to corruption, still vulnerable to patronage politics, and not responsive to the needs of the Filipino people.
And of course, I'm assuming you don't agree that this is, as what they said, the cleanest budget ever because of what you just mentioned.
Unfortunately, hindi. We see how many ways kung may sinasabing quote-unquote most open and transparent budget ito, but this is just a press release. What is the reality? Despite there being live streams, no, hindi naman masyadong na-effort na bigay yung reports as necessary to the public para mas naintindihan nila yung nangyayari in the budget processes. Crunching the 8 hours na naka-live stream yung buong process, and andyan pa rin yung dinidiscover natin na processes that at the end of the day, ang nakakaganansya ay yung mga iilang nasa kapangyarihan, mga mambabatas, yung mga kakuntsaba nilang mga officials, whether it be in the PWH or at the localities, and hindi yung needs of the people. Nandyan pa rin yung standing reasons natin ng paghihirap ng mamayang Pilipino. Our industries have shrunk, and therefore, ang mga kabataan ay pinupush na mag-abroad and hindi mag-take in ng domestic jobs here. Ang ating mga magsasaka ay nagugutom pa rin, wala pa rin sariling lupa, and causing this shortage of rice and this shortage of opportunities, even though we're an agricultural country. All this goes to show that yung pinaka-pressing needs natin, which we've laid out in demands, in interpellations, they're not seen in the budget. And what is still there is millions, billions, where existent pa rin yung system where you pwede kang makakapagkuntsaba ng contractor, makakuha ng napakalaking kickback, and political dynasties, contractors, those that are greedy for power can still get capital back.
Alright, so you've mentioned a lot of points there, and isa-isahin natin, unahin natin itong unprogrammed appropriations. Kausap ko po yesterday si Congressman Erice, and he said that he's going to push to file a petition before the Supreme Court to question nga the legality of this unprogrammed appropriations, because sabi nga niya, tulad ng nabanggit mo kanina, ang unprogrammed appropriations ay wala yan sa konstitusyon natin. So ang tanong po dito, Kong, will you support that petition? Will you be behind that petition as well?
Yung whether we'll be behind is something hinihintay pa natin, but on my part, I'd like to support all efforts para patama yung budget processes natin. And it includes yung pagtanggal ng recognition ng unprogrammed appropriations. Again, this is a martial law relic. It used to be called standby appropriations.
Yeah.
And we have seen in the past few budget cycles how it can be prone to abuse. Noong 2023, inaprubahan yung pagglobo ng unprogrammed appropriations, and naging daluyan ito kung paano may special provision na inaprubahan that allowed the government na tanggalin yung pondo ng PhilHealth, ibalik sa National Treasury, at i-allocate ito para pagpondo ng unprogrammed appropriations, which included flood control projects. Now, we have discovered in the past few months, a lot of them are ghost or substandard by design. Para mas makalaki yung pocket ng mga nagno-nominate nito or nakaka-kickback from this. So, at the end of the day, kailangan matanggal na yung unprogrammed appropriations.
Yeah.
We would support kung paano tanggalin to, whether it be sa Supreme Court processes or yung tuloy-tuloy na pagpukpok niya sa budget cycles, that this shouldn't exist in the first place.
But Representative, kasi isa rin po sa mga tinitignan dito sa budget na to, yung mga ayuda-ridden funds, at kasama nga dito yung MAIFIP, at saka tinitignan dito, although may prohibition na bawal na ngayon yung mga anti-EPAL campaign sa pagdidistribute ng mga ayuda sa ating mga mamamayan, pero there's no specific prohibition on political endorsements for aid access. Ito yung tinatawag natin na GL o yung guarantee letters na nagiging patronage, diba siya, political patronage sa mga politiko natin. So, have you seen in that budget kung talaga bang wala ng GL o nandoon pa rin siya?
Maraming claims na hindi na kailangan ng GL, etc. Pero andyan pa rin naman yung existing system where there can be nominations or there are required nominations to access these services. And because of the endorsement of a certain politician, makukuha ng isang mamamayan yung service na to. At the end of the day, yun naman yung gusto nating matanggal na proseso para makuha yung services. Because dapat, these services are free for all. They should be accessible and nariyan, no matter kung may backing ka ng politiko or hindi. Yes, may nakita tayo doon sa mga special provisions na worded na dapat hindi present si politiko, dapat walang representatives niya, etc. Pero we have seen these same provisions legislated in, for example, election law. No, diba? Yung these kinds of limitations in donations, limitations in dapat walang distribution ng ayuda, etc. some days before the election, has it stopped yung gantong practice, no, ng pagbibigay ng pera during elections? Hindi pa rin, no. Kayang ikutan at hinahanapan ng paraan ng mga politiko na gustong yung pangalan nila and yung light nila ay naka-associate sa services nito, na i-associate pa rin ito sa kanila some way or another. At the end of the day, what needs to happen is a change in the system. Hindi yung naglalagay tayo ng band-aids so that this system, which we have proven, is still patronage, is still nomination-based, ay i-maintain natin siya. So dapat hindi na lang nilagay yung pondo sa AIX, sa TUPAD for example. Dapat yung talagang pondohan natin kung paano mas magkakaroon ng trabaho in the Philippines for example.
Well, since it's not clear in the budget, no, sa budget natin 2026 yung prohibition nga nitong guarantee letters, ang sinasabi naman ni Finance Secretary Toledo ay yung prohibition pwedeng gawin, ma-implement o ma-work out through implementing agencies. Do you think that is going to happen in the future?
Well, we have yet to see yung guidelines na to, pero sa akin, I don't have my hopes high up na yung implementing rules na ito ay una, no, magiging walang butas or foolproof, and two, na hindi hahanapan ng paraan ng mga politiko na ikutan pa rin to somehow. Alam po natin kung paano, for example, nag-ooperate discreetly yung nominations or even yung pag-associate with a certain politician, yung pag-access ng services na to. Pwedeng through representatives in local communities that don't have to be specifically associated with a party list or with a politician. And through there, alam pa rin ng mga constituents na, dahil sa backing ni this politiko, may ganito. So, we have yet to see, pero again, ang dapat sanang nangyari, hindi na lang tong band-aid assistance programs ay continuously pondohan. And I think, conscious naman din po yung mga politiko natin na this is the case. Because nung pumasa or noong pinasa yung NEP, for these kinds of budgets, hindi siya as malaki. And then lumaki na lang siya at the end of the process. Which is to say, meron talagang pagiging discreet ng pagtaas ng budget na ito, na dapat yung pagbantay natin and yung galit natin yung nagpapahupa nito. So we have to be more vigilant and watchful, hindi lang for this budget cycle, pero for future budget cycles as well.
Right. It's good that you mentioned that, that we should stay vigilant and watchful, because you also discussed earlier yung tungkol sa allocables, which is not publicized, allocables ng congressmen and senators, knowing that it is already passed yung ating 2026 national budget. Paano natin, how are we going to scrutinize the allocables when in fact it is not publicized at all?
Yeah, unfortunately, and hindi rin vetoed ang DPWH allocables.
Yes.
And dahil hindi siya vetoed, naka-ensure ngayon ng Malacanang President Marcos Jr. yung continuation of the most entrenched system of corruption in government that allows a well-oiled machinery of kickbacks, overpricing, and ghost projects. Sa bahagi namin, and sa bahagi nating lahat, kailangan nating kalampagin yung greater transparency from these institutions. But we also have to look at signs, 'di ba? Parang there's a meme that goes na if I get rich, there would be signs. And we see signs, no? Our public officials are not living simple lives as required by law, but they are living, no, lavish lifestyles. And we have to look at kung bakit ba ganon yung pamumuhay nila. And is it because of kickbacks? Is it because of the overpricing? Makikita natin yan throughout the process. So I'm happy to note that during the past months ay maraming mga natayong local councils, no, people's councils or anti-corruption associations na may efforts na tinitignan yung local projects, no, whether it
Yung
be
mga budget watchdog,
a
oo.
flyover na hindi kailangan, etc. Mas
Right,
gawin
right,
natin
right.
po yun.
Okay. Alright, and also wanna ask you din, Kong, yung regarding dun sa mga natira na line items under the unprogrammed appropriations. Yung foreign assisted projects, yung military modernization, risk management, etc. Mga billions of pesos ang pinag-uusapan natin dito, Kong, ang isa sa mga dahilan, no, sinasabi ni ES Recto ay they didn't make the cut in the budget planning. That's why nandun sila sa unprogrammed appropriations, or some of them are already implemented or are set to be implemented. So, do you agree on that? I mean, paano ba? Kung hindi tama yung sinasabi ni ES Recto, ano ba dapat ang ginawa?
Dapat nagpasa sila ng supplemental budget. Even if it came later, no, even if hindi niya na-make yung cut ng NEP, the Constitution provides a process na kung ano man yung kailangang habulin, pwede pong ipasa through Congress in this way. Wala pong nagpipigil sa ganun. May magsasabi, of course, na hassle, mahaba yung proseso, pero that is what
That's
we
the
ought
right
to
thing to do.
when we talk about kung ano yung pagsunod sa mga prosesong nakalagay dyan na inaprubahan ng mamamayan na ratified through a 1987 Constitution. Yun na lang po sana yung ginawa.
Well, before I let you go, taking this opportunity na rin, Congresswoman, to ask you regarding the so-called break bonuses, na sinabi ni Congressman Toby Tiangco na nag-ugat, doon sa naging pahayag ni Congressman Leandro Leviste na prior to the ratification of the budget, there were Christmas bonuses that were given to congressmen. Number one, is that true? Is that, ang sinabi kasi ni Congressman Egay Erice, hindi daw yun bonuses, but MOOE. Diba? Number one, is it true? Kayo po sa opisina ninyo, do you get these bonuses at all? And how much?
Unfortunately, or hindi kasi not only are we minority of the minority pa ang Makabayan bloc. Perhaps sa iba, this is true. And sa bahagi ng mamamayan, kailangan din kalampagin, kung may gantong mga nakukuha ang congressmen or legislators, bakit? And ilabas kung bakit may gantong nakukuha and for what reason.
So wala po ang inyong opisina. According po kasi to Congressman Erice, sa kanya meron silang natatanggap pero mostly for other expenses nga daw po ng kanilang mga tauhan. And of course kapag nag-break, 'di ba, yung kailangan bigyan ng sasweldohan yung mga staff, etc. And mostly pa nga daw ay nag-aabono pa siya. Pero kayo po, para dun sa inyong additional na mga tauhan, hindi po sila nabibigyan nitong MOOE na to?
Oo, wala po. As I've stated in public record before, yung pinaka nakukuha talaga natin, yung salary, and I take only what is necessary for myself, and the rest ay through the organization ginagamit para suportahan yung iba't ibang activities. It's limited, pero sa bahagi namin clean, yung kamay namin, so to speak.
Oh, and then lastly na mabilisan na lang po, Kong. Bakit po sa tingin nyo kayo wala, yung iba meron?
I guess it's because of the scrutiny that we underlay these processes. Hindi siya desired ng leadership. Mas gusto nila yung mga nakalinya at nakokontrol yung nasasabi. And this is what we have to do para baguhin yung mga processes na to to be something else, to be something hindi lang closer to the people pero hawak ng mga mamamayan at hindi lang ng iilan.
All right.
This isn't to toot my own horn, but this is to, of course, continue encouraging everyone na ito dapat yung ginagawa natin, no? When we talk about people's governance, lahat tayo participants dito, and we have to be loud, we have to be present all the time, and challenging, no? Yung mga people that could be accepting, or we know to accept a lot of capital, no? Have a lot of stake in power, na hindi dapat ganyan. Public service is a service, it's not an investment.
Alright, maraming salamat po muli sa inyong oras, Kabataan Party List Representative Rene Co. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much.
Now don't go away, more matters to discuss after the break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, First Lady Celia Flores, have pleaded not guilty in New York federal court to charges including narco-terrorism and cocaine importation. Here's the report.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has arrived in Manhattan, New York to face court proceedings. Maduro landed via helicopter accompanied by police and law enforcement officials, facing charges of narco-terrorism, cocaine importation and other weapons offenses. He and his wife, First Lady Celia Flores, have pleaded not guilty. The next court date was set for March 17. According to President Donald Trump, the U.S. will temporarily oversee operations in Venezuela. Maduro was arrested on Saturday following a U.S. airstrike in Venezuela, which reportedly killed 40 people. Geopolitical analyst Richard Heydarian warned in an interview with a big story that attack could create volatility in global oil markets, though he said immediate effects may be limited.
We're not going to see an overnight oversupply or glut in the oil market, but yes, of course, over the long run, should Trump move ahead with Greenland, should consolidate America's new Monroe Doctrine and really focus on energy security and supply chain security, you're going to create a new international order, and that's going to inevitably impact the Philippines.
Heydarian added that the Philippines should maintain a balance between its alliance with the United States and its commitment to a rules-based international order. Meanwhile, Dr. Romel Banlawi, president of the Philippine Society for International Security Studies, told News and Views that tensions between the United States and Venezuela represent the biggest security issue of the 21st century so far.
This is the biggest security issue in the 21st century thus far because it raises a lot of issues about the current world order. It is not only about the arrest of President Maduro, but also the emergence of a new world order, because apparently under the current situation, President Trump's decision to attack Venezuela is undermining the very core concept of state sovereignty.
Banlawi also suggested that the Philippines should rethink its alliance with the United States in the wake of its attack on Venezuela.
For a long period of time.
Preparations for the Feast of the Black Nazarene on January 9 are now in full swing. For the latest updates, we go to our mobile journalist, Arles de los Santos. Arles, ano na mga paghahanda dyan?
Lang ngayong at ang Manila City noon ng clearing operation para sa paparating na translation 2026 sa Biyernes. Ngayon, nandito na tayo sa Ayala Bridge, no? Kung saan nga dito isa to sa mga dadaanan ng translasyon ngayong taon. Ayon sa MMDA, iikutin ngayong araw yung 7 kilometro na dadaanan nito. Yung ruta, no, nandyan yung Nepomuceno, Ayala Bridge, and then yung Burgos, dire-diretso hanggang makabalik nga. No? Ayan ay 7 kilometers. Kasama din nila dito ngayong araw yung LTO at yung Coast Guard para nga raw maging composite yung magiging clearing operation na gagawin. No? So sa LTO, kapag kami mga sasakyan na walang mga plaka o syempre yung mga dumadaan pa rin ng mga e-bike sa mga national highway, ayun yung mga kailangan ma-apprehend, and sa gayon magkaroon din ng aksyon agad. No? Yung Coast Guard naman nakahandang umalalay kung magkaroon man ng tensyon. There are more on like neutraling, yung parang mapakalma, kung magkaroon man ng anything, at least that's for their role, no? And ngayon, nakalagpas na tayo doon sa Ayala Bridge. Didiretso naman tayo dito sa isa pang bahagi dito sa Quiapo malapit para nga masigurado daw. So bawal yung anuman na sidewalk obstruction, illegal parking, kailangan daw masiguro na ito ilang araw nga bago ang traslasyon na isasagawa sa Biyernes.
Alright, maraming salamat to our mobile journalist Arles de los Santos. Now, Filipina tennis star Alex Ayala opened her 2026 campaign with a strong statement win at the ASB Classic in Auckland, New Zealand. Teaming up with American teenager Iva Jovic, Ayala defeated tennis legends Venus Williams and Elina Svitolina in straight sets in their opening doubles match. The first set went to a tense tiebreak before the young duo took control and dominated the second. The win gives Ayala a confidence boost as she begins the new season. She now turns her focus to singles and is set to face Donna Vekic later today in Auckland. And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you just the right start to your morning. Let's make the day matter. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro. Kapatid, we are One News. All sides, all the time.